Hi, my name is Joshua Echigoyen, and my policy debate presentation is going to be on minimum wage increase. Starting off with the introduction, the federal government should raise the minimum wage so that citizens may live comfortably and safely on their own. Minimum wage in the United States does not provide a sufficient sense of security. As a result, about half of our population lives on or around the poverty line. Some of the main underlying factors that are highly affected include 1. Employment and family income, 2. Small businesses, and 3. Affordable housing. Finally, if we do not overcome this problem by 2025, we will only face more serious issues as time passes and humans need to grow. Moving on to employment and family income, employment affects not only the businesses involved, but also the families who may suffer or profit from the greater salary. Its increase would benefit certain low-wage workers and their families. This will lift some families out of the poverty, but it will also result in the loss of jobs for other low-wage workers, lowering their family income. This is due to the fact that low-wage workers will seek out chances that pay better earnings rather than staying in jobs that pay less. Those who work in the food industry or rely on tips for the majority of their income or are most affected by the federal minimum wage. To fight this issue, the minimum wage should raise to $15 per hour by 2025. With the tipped cash minimum gradually increasing to meet the regular minimum, following that, both wages should be linked to the median salary to deal with the product and service inflation. Furthermore, because of the limited career alternatives available to these ages, sub-minimum wages for teenagers and disabled workers should be removed. Hiring the minimum wage could affect businesses or families in a myriad of ways. Consequently, because of the greater minimum wage, a considerably lower number of low-paid workers quit their job for a period of time, causing their families to lose money. Due to unsecured job security, the savings family will struggle through the change of minimum wage because it is unsure that this will help people who are still under the poverty line due to the increase in prices. The impact of higher minimum wage on families with low-wage workers is dependent on the number of such workers in the family because most families live off joint incomes or are dependent on the government assistance, such as food stamps or disability pay or unemployment. Moving on to raising the minimum wage by 2025 and their plan. The Minimum Wage Act has been a diverse issue that has fluctuated with numerous measures to assist Americans. To minimize the poverty rate, the best solution that has emerged is to raise the minimum wage in all states to $15 per hour. The plan for the 15 minimum wage includes 1. The federal minimum wage would climb from $7.25 to $15 per hour by 2025. 2. The adjustment would be phased in over 6 years, starting with a $1.30 yearly increase on January 1st, 2020, and ending with a $1.30 increase on January 1st, 2024. And lastly, there will be a final hike of $1.25 on January 1st, 2025. Not only does raising the minimum wage help the poverty line, but it can also affect the prices, businesses, and consumers. In general, increasing the minimum wage has 2 effects on employment. For starters, higher salaries raise the costs of producing goods and services for businesses, as well as employers pass on some of their increased expenses to consumers in the form of higher prices, and consumers in turn purchase fewer goods and services as a result of higher prices. Congressional Digest, page 3. Moving on to minimum wage post-pandemic. As we all struggled and faced the hardships of the pandemic, which encompassed trying to survive off the federal unemployment and recovery plans implemented by the president. We need to consider the economic impact that the pandemic has had on our country. As the U.S. economy recovers from the COVID-19 epidemic, there has been widespread reporting of continued labor shortages, particularly in low-wage areas affected hard by the crisis, such as food services. Keenan Insight, page 2. The implementation of minimum wage is a technique for addressing poverty. However, the federal minimum wage does not currently provide a livable wage to many workers, which is defined as amount of money required to cover necessities such as food, daycare, housing, health insurance, and transportation. Moving on to small businesses. On the flip side, small and family-owned businesses will take the greatest impact from hiring the minimum wage. The higher wages that these businesses have to pay their employees cause the small businesses to tarnish because either they had to lay off workers, increase the price to cut corners in the development of their businesses. This led to about 53% of businesses with fewer than 50 employees saying that the pandemic had a moderate to severe impact on their operations. Megan Lionheart, page 1. A higher minimum wage affects businesses' owners' families' income to the point where profits are affected. The losses in businesses' income are greatest in the early years of following the implementation of higher minimum wage. Increases in the prices of goods and services erode families' purchasing power, reducing real income for particularly everyone. As businesses pass on a greater expenses to consumers, the losses in business income decreases while the losses of families' actual income increases. Affordable housing. On average, to afford a 2-bedroom apartment, renters must earn $24.90 per hour across the U.S., greatly exceeding the mandated minimum wage. The nation is facing a bumpy economic recovery in the aftermath of the coronavirus pandemic, and the viruses and public health emergency employment losses have disproportionately harmed workers who can least afford a loss of income. In general, since 2009, the federal minimum wage in the United States has been $7.25 per hour. Many states have increased their minimum wage, and several are on track to reach $15 per hour in the next few years. However, $15 an hour still does not make the cut. In 2021, a renter in the United States would need to earn an on average of $20.40 per hour to afford a modest 1-bedroom rental home. This leads to many low-wage workers with the housing cost burden, meaning they're unable to spend less than 30% or in some cases 50% of their earnings on rent. When your housing costs burden, you're not able to save for unexpected emergencies. On the other hand, a shutdown or furlough can have reverberating effects on and can be indicative of how those low-wage workers were much more likely to fall into a precarious situation. Alias, page 2. Overall, our required minimum wage provide little sense of security in the post-pandemic era, allowing the majority of minimum wage workers to only be able to live in poverty. Finishing with the conclusion, in hindsight, there are numerous arguments to be made concerning minimum wages in the United States. Regardless, I believe that the federal minimum wage should be increased to at least $15 per hour. Workers and families alike struggle to survive paycheck to paycheck and try to live a normal life free of extenuous obligations. But it is impossible to do so without a higher minimum wage. I've discussed how low pay affects issues like employment and family income, small businesses, and affordable housing. In the long run, if we do not tackle this problem, our low-income individuals who are already living in poverty will suffer even greater challenges. And that'll complete my debate brief on hiring the minimum wage. So after discussing this very wide and controversial topic on raising the minimum wage, there are a lot of solutions that could help the people who live on the poverty line, but as well damage the economy, such as small businesses. When it comes to the bottom line, the chances of minimum wage hiring to $15 an hour is very slim, and inflation of prices may hurt us more, but we can never know unless we try.